Greetings, this is the man who pretends to be Charles Darwin, and now I'm speaking to you from the Place Gutenberg in Strasbourg, France. And in fact, this plaza, or place, is named after one of the most famous former citizens of Strasbourg, that is Johannes Gutenberg, the inventor of the printing press. And this is a place where people come from all over the world. Tourists come to look at the Alsatian buildings and the old architecture. And it is a place of extreme quiet and serious contemplation. Whoops, maybe not. Okay, so anyway, this is the Place Gutenberg, and it's named after the man who lived part of his career here, Johannes Gutenberg, the inventor of the printing press. And I'm here to talk to you about cultural evolution. And one of the most important advances in cultural evolution in the human species, much more so than in any other species, is language. But after that came writing. And for a long time, that was our major cultural innovation, was writing. But it was all done by hand, much of it on paper or on vellum or something like that. But Johannes Gutenberg thought, you know, I bet there's something else we could do. I bet that instead of writing everything by hand, we could actually use a printing press. That is, we could have papers and we could put ink on metal and we could press the metal into the papers and produce a copy that way. The advantage, of course, is that it could be done much more quickly than copying everything by hand, the way it used to be done. And you might think that the advantages of the printing press would have been immediately obvious to everyone, but that was not the case. It certainly was not the case to Gutenberg's creditors, and Gutenberg almost lost funding and wasn't able to continue with his invention. But he did do that. He got his idea from looking at a wine press. But one might think, what would be the advantages of a printing press? One is that the books produced by the printing press would be much cheaper. You could produce a lot more of them, and that they could therefore be sold to and read by a lot more people than could the manuscripts produced by hand, each one of which was very expensive. But what was the advantage then of doing that? How could anybody deny the advantage of the printing press? Well, a lot of people did, and that's why I suggest that the printing press got started in places like Mainz, Germany, and Strasbourg, France, rather than in Paris, because where there was a lot of money and power involved, the people at the top of the church and the top of the businesses and everything wanted to keep the middle class and the lower class stupid. By making books more widely available to people, that created a market for literacy, so more people were able to read than they could before the invention of the printing press. And this was something that was not necessarily in the interests of the people who had power. It democratized the availability of information. Well, what were some of the results of that? What were some of the results of the fact that you could then have lots of copies rather than just a few copies? This shows Benjamin Franklin there in the middle, and all of the other people, all the other men who signed the Declaration of Independence off to the side, and showing them around a printing press. Now, this didn't actually happen in Independence Hall in Philadelphia, but it was part of the process. By printing lots of copies of the Declaration of Independence, they were able to travel throughout America and also throughout the world. Thomas Jefferson, who is in this picture somewhere, Thomas Jefferson said that the purpose of the Declaration of Independence was to place before mankind the common sense of the situation in terms so plain and clear as to command their assent. Now, this couldn't be done with just a few copies. It had to be done with lots of copies. Another thing that is on this pedestal, which is a memorial to Gutenberg, is, I'm going to try to keep from tripping over the steps here. Here's another one right here. I'm going to come up closer so you can see it. This shows a printing press, and then it shows slaves. And so, at the beginning of the 1800s, slavery was still rather widespread. And everybody sort of knew about it, but it was kind of an open secret. In the United States, most slavery was hidden away in the plantations of the southern states. But because of abolitionist writings and because they were printed up and sent widely around, and there were lots and lots of newspapers, because of that, people became widely aware of not only slavery, but also the abomination of slavery. And so it wasn't very long after that, less than a century, that we had the Civil War and then the freeing of the slaves. And so you can see that the printing press is more than just a way of printing things, but it is also a way of making information more widely available to the middle class, not just to the upper class, and even to the lower classes as well. This is the man who pretends to be Charles Darwin, celebrating some important aspects of cultural evolution, in this case, the printing press.